Good morning, class. I thought I'd give a brief video about week 9, which would be basically next week, dealing with the annotated bib assignment, which is really the second component of your research paper. Remember, the research paper proposal is due this Sunday. So if you watched the previous video, um, it was in the week's 7 folder, and I moved it over and labeled it week 8 because starting about 13 minutes in to about the end, I give you sort of the overview again about what the research paper is about and what the proposal will be. So if you haven't had a chance to watch that video, I'll definitely go back and watch that so you can have some knowledge and logic of what you got to do with that first component of your research paper. Otherwise, the annotated bib is not going to make much sense to you, and it's going to be sort of a challenge to complete by the 24th of July, which would be not this Sunday, but next, of course. The thing about the research paper, and the reason why I opened up week 8 and week 9, is that you don't necessarily have to wait until a particular due date is coming up. You can work ahead. I would suggest working ahead. That's why I said, when we had that summer break, if you wasn't really going anywhere or doing anything really extensively away from your computer and that type of stuff, you could go ahead and get kind of a head start with the research paper. Because it is one of those, it can be a beast. It's something that you can't really wait until the last minute, right? Because you have, these two components that come before you actually draft a rough draft of the research paper, and then before you submit your final draft, which will be due on the 28th of July. So if you can kind of keep that in mind, that would be on a Thursday that the research paper is actually due, the final draft. So what I have up here now is basically, you can find this in your week 9 folder. You click on where it says annotated bib information and you download. And what you need to sort of pay close attention to are the 4 questions that I list here. And I'll talk a little bit more about how to go about using those to help you create your annotated bib, which if you look down below, I give you a model example that a student did in the past. The student made a 90 or higher, so it's an A quality paper. As it relates to the annotated bib, it has the 6 sources, it has everything, it answers those 4 questions, it puts the answers of those 4 questions in paragraph form. You do have MLA 9 citation correctly, and you basically have it labeled alphabetical order by author's last name. So, and I give you margins to sort of comment and feedback here to go back and kind of look at, to study this one, to help you in your journey. The thing is, what you're going to have to do, if you haven't already, is one, you got to pick your research paper topic. So again, if you go back, I think it's in week 8, you can kind of look and see there's 10 topics there we talked about, or I talked about in the last video. You choose one of those 10 topics, and then you do your proposal. Again, there's a video, there's a handout about the proposal. There's 4 different questions that you have to answer on the proposal. So just don't get these 4 questions on the annotated bib and the 4 questions that are due this Sunday confused, because they're 4 different questions for each assignment. This one that I'm talking about today, directly deals with the annotated bib assignment. So after you pick your research paper topic, after you complete your research paper proposal for this Sunday, you want to get, if you haven't already, hopefully you kind of worked ahead and did some of the research, because now you're going to have to go out and actually hit payment. You're either going to have to go to a public library, you're going to have to go to a college library, but you're going to have to get 6 academic / scholarly sources on your particular topic. If you looked at the library orientation video with Caroline, that's going to be a good thing, a good way to start helping you be able to use Galileo, some of the databases that this library or that the college library offers. I know a lot of public libraries also use Galileo and that type deal. So if you haven't watched that particular video about the virtual library orientation, please do that, because that will sort of be a benefit as it comes to where am I going to find research for this paper. You're going to need 6 sources, 6 scholarly sources. So generally what I suggest is that you find 2 scholarly books. Now they could be ebooks or they could be, in print books. 2 scholarly journal articles. Again, they could be e-journal articles or in print. Those 4 items right there you can find from either your college library or your public library. So those 4 items really need to come from a library of some sort. The last 2 that round up to 6 is 2 scholarly websites. So what I suggest with that is stay with anything that's .edu, .org, .org, or .gov. Those are usually more reputable and credible. Again, if you watch that video by Caroline, who goes over the CRAP test and a lot of that issue as it relates to evaluating sources, she talks a lot more about what are better internet sources to use. Wikipedia is not really a great scholarly source. What you could do with Wikipedia real quick, and I'll bring that up, is you can get basic information. And I'm just going to put William Shakespeare here just because I know there's a lot that's been said and written about him. You can get a basic general information about who William Shakespeare is by reading a Wikipedia page, and you can do so as well with your topic if you feel need to. But if you notice, if you go to view history, there, we can't really verify if any of these people that have edited or uploaded information on here, what kind of credentials they have. Right? It could be anywhere from somebody that has a doctorate degree to somebody that's dropped out of high school to a 3-year-old who really knows how to type to a 97-year-old who just can't sleep and is rambling for whatever reason. So that's why you can't really use the information you find on a Wikipedia page to be 100%, credible. In this case, it looks like if you look, there's little footnotes with numbers. It looks like this particular web page or web article has been very well written and researched. So that's why a lot of folks will say, well, we can just use Wikipedia because it looks like it's been very well read and researched here. But what you probably want to spend more attention to that's going to be helpful how you can use a Wikipedia page is go down and look at their notes, see who they cited, see if there's hyperlinks that you can click on, because generally when you click on those notes or hyperlinks, they will take you to a scholarly page of some sort, a book or journal article. The same thing is if you look at the references, you can sort of piggyback off of those or the actual sources itself. So anything that, that's in the reference page, that's in the sources page or the notes, generally if there's a hyperlink, you can kind of click on and use. You just can't use the stuff that's really above all that stuff because, again, we can't very well verify if it's correct or not. So going back to the annotated bib assignments. Let me see, where did I put it? Okay. You're going to have 6 scholarly sources. You're going to read through those scholarly sources. You want to take notes. You want to highlight or print out or make note of quotations, passages that you plan on using in your actual research paper. And if you looked, I give you some information about how to integrate quotations, how to quote properly, paraphrase, summarize. There's a part 1 that's in this week's folder. If you click here and go through that, there's a couple of videos that you may want to watch If this is really your first time writing a college level research paper, I would, pay close attention to how to do this, because the whole purpose of doing the annotated bib is to get the 6 credible sources you want to actually quote, paraphrase, and summarize in your research paper. So you're going to need to know how to do that. There's a part 1 and then there's a part 2. This is also going to be helpful as well, because if you got to take an English 1102 or a American Lit, or something of that nature, an English 1101 at some point, you're going to need to know how to quote, because you're going to have to do research papers there. So this is a helpful site that gives you videos. I would suggest that you watch the videos, and if you still need some extra help, to read through the actual web page to get additional information on that. There is a sample MLA study guide, which is really going to be your quiz 6 or your final quiz. You might want to work through that study guide. If you want to send your answers so I can check, I will give you the correct answers. Otherwise, as it gets closer to the quiz, I will, email everybody the answers so they can, check on their own. As you can tell, this is the Annotated Bib Dropbox. That's where you're going to submit your annotated bib. This is where you're going to find information with those 4 questions. You just click and download. And as you can tell, we have a little tick counter here. You got 12 days to complete this annotated bib. So again, going back to the actual questions, once you read your 6 sources, you're going to answer these 4 questions to those 6 sources. So you got 6 different sources, but you're asking the same 4 questions, and you're going to have 4 different answers each time you ask these 4 questions to those 6 sources. So what I suggest is that you go ahead and you sort of make up a Word document like I did here, and you make sort of a template. And I'm just going to blow this up. And basically what I did was I copied and pasted those 4 questions. And if you look here, I did that for the first 5 of my sources. It's the same questions for source 1, the same 4 questions for source 2, the same questions for source 3, the same questions for source 4, the same questions for source 5, and then of course source 6. So you can kind of use this as an easy template to be able to ask and answer these questions. And then what I did was, going back to source 1, is this is my particular source. This is a particular website that I used. This is the author, and how I got this particular citation is that I went to this particular works cited generator. It's called Free MLA Citation Generator. Make sure that it's on MLA 9, and then search to see what you're doing. If you're doing a website, just put the website there. The book, you put the book title or the book call number or whatever the case may be. The same thing with the journal. So what I did was I went ahead and searched, and this is what I got. So I click on that, and notice it's light. So I want to sort of edit and add some stuff to it. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to have to go back and edit this to add, additional information, meaning I would need to get the author, since there is an author, first and last name. I'd put that in there. I'd put the date that it's published. I would put the date that it was reviewed, the publisher, the title of the web page, whatever you can find on that particular web page. You want to sort of fill in as much as you can. You don't want to lie about anything or make anything up, but that's basically what I would do as it relates to, the citations for your 6 sources in this case. Because if you do a really good annotated bib, I will come back in another week or so and show you how you can make your annotated bib basically your works cited page in about 30 seconds, minus the paragraphs that you're going to have on this. So as you can tell, that's how I basically filled this out. I had my source 1. This is the citation for that. I then asked these 4 questions. What are the main arguments, points, topics covered in this particular source? Here is my answer. Number 2, is this particular source as it relates to its information about your topic objective or biased? Is the information reliable? Here again, this is my answer to that. Number 3, how can you use this particular source in your research paper? How is this particular source helpful to you? Again, after reading the source, I was able to come up with this as my answer. And then the last question, how has this particular source changed how you think about your topic? Again, this is a little bit lengthier. Sometimes your answers may be a little lengthier than others. That's okay. I would try to keep your answers within a 1 to 3 sentence range, because what are you going to do now is, because our ultimate goal is really this: you want to get your annotated bib to look like this. Again, you're going to have, your name, my name, the course number, the date, month, and year, the topic, whatever your topic that you're doing your research paper on, and then you want to give me sort of a tentative thesis statement. I realize that your thesis statement could change between now and the 28th, and it probably will, especially as you start doing more research. Don't forget your last name, whatever your last name is, and then your page number. And then you're going to put in the title, center, annotated bib, and then we have our citation comes first, and then this paragraph will come. So how do you get that paragraph? Well, it's real simple if you use this particular template I have. What I suggest folks to do is you get rid of this. We're going to come back and do the style here in a minute. And the reason why I highlighted everything is because in this case, I'm just leaving my answers. So I'm getting rid of my questions at this point for this particular source 1. And if you do it in order, your sentences will follow in order. So you should have 4 answers, which I do. And again, I'm going to do the spacing and edit here in a minute. So what I do is now I get rid of all this stuff that I highlighted. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to backspace my answers into the previous one. And that's how I'm forming my paragraph. And when I get up here, what I'm going to make sure to do is I'm going to go ahead and highlight this, make sure that it's in Times New Roman 12. Okay, here we go. And then I'm going to go to my paragraph feature. I'm going to make sure that I double space everything. I'm going to indent my paragraph. I'm going to correct some of the spacing issues with the red lines. And then I'm going to make sure, notice how that the first line of my citation, I don't indent. You don't have to indent that first line, but if you go beyond the first line, each one of those lines, you're going to have to highlight and use hanging indent. You can go back to your paragraph feature and use special and click on hanging, and it will bring it in. So backing this out some, that's how I got my paragraph. And so basically what you'd be doing is, since this is source 1, you have 5 other sources you would be doing this in. The only thing that's really missing would be, of course, I need to put my header. John Smith, let's say this is the student John Smith, Mr. Wilson, English 1010. I'm going to put the due date that it's actually due. So in this case, the 24th. Then I'm going to put the title, Annotated Bib. You can do bib or bibliography or bibs because it's really more than one. And then, of course, I'm going to go up here and insert a page number. So I'm going to go over here to where it says page number. I'm going to do top of page. I'm going to do plain number 3. And then in this case, Smith is the student supposedly writing this. I'm putting Smith, doing a space, closing that up. So when I get to my source 2, I can sort of follow along with that. Just make sure that after you do all 6 of these, that again, that they're in alphabetical order by the author's last name. Not first name, but last name. So again, if I go back to this particular handout that I was using, Cooper, Hill will come next, and then of course, you know, the rest of it. Basically how I have it set up here, and I will bring this over because this is another example. Hill, Hawley, Mullen, lightning safety. And again, lightning safety, the reason why lightning safety comes here, notice there's no author. So if there's not an author, you sort of have to blend in where it needs to go, where you think it needs to go alphabetically by, in this case, it'd be, you know, the title of the particular website or the article. Notice web articles or journal articles usually are inside quotation marks. If you're dealing with a book, it's going to be, or a film, it's more or less going to be italicized. But in a nutshell, that's really what the annotated bib is. If you use, or if you sort of make your own template, sort of like I did here, of those 4 questions, things will be a little bit easier for you to organize. It should go smoothly in that regard. If you kind of go rogue or do something on your own, I can't guarantee how it's going to look unless you send me drafts. And that's what I recommend that you do, is that once you start doing some of these, please send me drafts. Send me drafts to smart, you know, to me, to Smart Thinking. Usually after you do the first 2, the last 4 sort of come in play because you're basically doing the same thing for all 6. It's just you have 6 different sources, and your paragraphs obviously are going to have 6 different, you know, answers as it relates to your sentences that make up those paragraphs. And your citations are going to be a little bit different because you got 2 journal articles, 2 books, and 2 websites. So again, this particular assignment is not due until the 24th. I wouldn't wait until the weekend of the 24th, especially if you need to go to the library, say the college library. I know Coastal Pines College Library is generally open only Monday through Thursday. Your public library, depending on where you're at, they may be open on the weekends, but most libraries are closed on Sunday. So you'd have to sort of, you know, work around your own schedule if you plan on going to a public library or something of that nature. I would call and see what their schedule is, you know, throughout the week and that type deal. But I can tell you most Coastal Pines libraries, they open at 7:30 and they close at 6 Monday through Thursday. So what I would suggest is hopefully you have a research paper topic in mind. I would go ahead and try to wrap up that proposal. And again, you can send me drafts of your proposal anytime this week. I would have to say a cutoff would be probably Friday by midnight. That would give me enough time to sort of look at everybody's and send it back before it's due on Sunday. Again, the earlier the better with that. The same thing I would suggest with the annotated bib. I would probably say the cutoff for that would be the 22nd, which is next Friday. But again, if you can kind of send it in earlier, you know, I can give better constructive feedback because I have a little bit more time with it. As it relates to the research paper, because that's going to be due basically not this Thursday or next, but the Thursday after. So basically you have 3 Thursdays until it's due, and that's going to be due on the 28th of July. You can send me, the last time I can really look at drafts for the research paper would probably be like Tuesday. And I would say by the end of business Tuesday, and for me, the end of business is 6 o'clock because that's the time I leave office. So if you can get something in by July 26th as it relates to the research paper, that would be helpful. But again, what I would suggest that you do as well, use Smart Thinking for before sending me drafts, because then once you get their feedback, you can correct what they want you to correct, and you can send me the new draft. That way you have two sets of eyes looking at your work. Otherwise, I hope everybody has a great rest of the week for week 8. I hope everybody has a great week for week 9. And as we get into really the final week, which would be our final full week, would be week 10. And then we have a little bit, August 1st is really our last day. That's where the final exam essay will happen. I will talk a little bit more about that. That, for the most part, is just going to be sort of an extension of your self-reflection essay. Remember, some of y'all did the Proctor U Essay 3. This is just going to be an extension of what have you learned overall since Essay 3. And again, I'll give you a little bit more guidance and guidelines on that as it gets closer. We'll probably talk about that, the week of the 25th or so. It's not another Proctor U thing. It's basically going to be another essay that you have to do outside, on your own time, but it has to be, about 2 pages, 500 words, and that one will have to be due by 11:59 on Monday, August 1st, because they're going to want grades later that week. So again, I hope everybody is doing well, and I will talk to you soon.